You would think that in America, whoever gets the most votes wins the election, but when it comes to the presidency, that just isn't true. Ask Al Gore and Hillary Clinton. They both won the popular vote and still lost. So how did it get this way? And what does this mean for Kamala Harris and Donald Trump? In this episode of Politics Explained, we're breaking down the Electoral College and why it's like a big old family cookout. Under the Electoral College, every state gets a certain number of delegates to represent you, the voter, and cast a vote for a presidential candidate. The number of delegates a state gets is all based on how big it is. For example, California will have 54 delegate votes this election, but a smaller state like Maine will just have 4 votes. Here's where things get a little tricky. Many people think the system isn't fair for states like California or New York, because in these states, one delegate has to represent so many people, whereas smaller states with fewer people get just as much power as the larger states. Think of the Electoral College as one big old family cookout. One side of the family may say they want mac and cheese or Kamala Harris as the main dish. They're a big group with lots of family members, like the states of California and New York. But there's another side of the family, maybe a little smaller in size with fewer folks, like the states of Arizona or Wisconsin. But because they have more elders, their opinion will have more weight. That means if enough of those elders want potato salad or Donald Trump, it doesn't matter that most of the family wanted mac and cheese. The elders have an advantage in swaying what we eat. That's like the Electoral College. States like New York and California may have more people and are more densely populated, but their votes don't carry as much weight as the swing states, which may have fewer bodies but more heavily weighted electoral votes. When you add up all the states, there are 538 electoral votes available, so whoever wins the most, which is 270 electoral votes, wins the presidency. This is why candidates end up spending so much time in places where Electoral College votes are weighted more heavily and where the outcome isn't as predictable. It's assumed a place like New York will vote Democratic and Texas will vote Republican, but Wisconsin is not a guarantee. This is also why we must pay attention to the sneaky rule changes that are happening right before our eyes. Like in Georgia, where a pro-Trump group just voted that all ballots must be hand-counted. Millions of ballots, and this change is happening weeks before the election. It's a rule change that will definitely slow down getting the election results. So why did we even keep the Electoral College? Well, while constructing the Constitution, northern and southern states agreed upon the 3/5 compromise, meaning an enslaved person would count as 3/5 of a person, so southern states wouldn't be outnumbered by the heavily populated north. Enslaved bodies would count towards representation, even though enslaved people weren't being represented. Keeping the Electoral College system protected Southern interests. So, if you're voting this year, just remember everything that was done to preserve the status quo then, and take nothing for granted about how far people will go to tip the scales in their favor now. This is Natasha Alford for TheGrio's Politics Explained. Tell us what kind of state you're voting in, and whether you're voting for mac and cheese or potato salad.